Consent agenda, previous minutes, we have 2 minutes on there. If I have no questions, I'll take a motion to approve. Okay, Devin's made a motion. Josh? Here. Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
I think we're having sound issues. It looks like he's trying to talk.
Josh, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Next to the policy, we have first read, we have F21 for student attendance, H1 Title I, FNESU Part A parent and family engagement policy, F25 lockers policy, and F9 ER UUSD district choice policies. Any comments on those? No, entertain motion to approve those.
Motion.
Rich has made a motion. Josh?
Yeah, I think I got this figured out.
Okay.
So it's running a little bit slow. We got Starlight. What was that again?
I just made a motion for the policy for the first reads. And I'm looking for your vote.
Yeah, A.
Okay. Devin?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm aye. And nothing for the second read, and then we have some informational ones. Just the F9 P.E.G UUSD district choice procedure. Do we need to reprioritize anything?
No.
Okay. Next is recognition of visitors. I know we have Andrew from Black River Design. I believe he's going to present later.
John. The top left.
And John. And John. Right, sure. And you guys are they for the? Yeah. Perfect. Next we're into the Black River Design presentation.
So, good evening.
Hey, John.
Hi. Hey, Len.
Hey. So good evening, Andrew. I think we're going to want to share our screens. It looks like Andrew's got that figured out. There we go. So I appreciate you guys putting us on here early in your meeting. That's very much appreciated. So we'll get right to this. I guess I should introduce myself. John Hemmelgarn. I'm a partner at Black River Design. Andrew McCullough is the project manager that's been working with Nate and Vern and Morgan on this. What we want to do is just run you through kind of where we're at right now on the project and give you a chance to make any comments or questions that you have. What you're looking at right now, and I guess I would ask, make sure everyone can see this fairly clearly. This is the existing plan of the Career Center. At the top of the screen, Andrew, I'll let you'll have to point here as I talk, I guess. At the top of the screen is the driveway in off of Missisquoi Street. And you come in, the driveway circles all the way around the building. On what would be the back side from where you approach is the front door of the center. Away from anything where anybody might know where that door is. To the left or the west of the building is a large shed, or there was a large shed there. There's a smaller pre-manufactured piece there now. On the opposite side of the center is the existing greenhouse, and there's some storage containers there and some buses that get parked in the area. Where it says parking area is a recently acquired piece of property from the neighbor with the intent of increasing parking on the site in this location. The other buildings that you see on the site here are the one that Andrew's pointing to now is an existing residence, as you know, and we'll be looking at that a little bit later, that part of the site. Then the other piece there that he's pointing to now was the big red barn that was there that has been removed. And at one point there was under consideration to put in a sugar house in this location. That has since been, I think, moved to an off-site location. So when you're looking at the existing floor plan, and Andrew, is the next slide the existing plan, or is this what we've got?
Existing.
Yeah, there we go. So the existing building, and I'm gonna assume that all of you have been over there and know what this building looks like. It's a little dated in its aesthetic, I might say. There was a solar wall that was in there. The intent, I think, was to heat this via a solar system that was not very effective and replaced with a gas-fired boiler system fairly quickly. But the red area that you see here is the current automotive trades. Next to that is a very small construction trades area. As you can see, there's by the time you would put a classroom in that space, there's almost no room left for building anything. The orange is the current forestry program. The yellow area is the pre-tech. The cross-hatched area, kind of gray there, is an existing space that's, I would say, underutilized. There had been a program in there that has since disappeared. And then the dark gray is the current administrative spaces in the building, which is so small that Nate has actually been pushed upstairs to what had been a conference room. So we might as well just go straight up there. So that's where Nate's office is now. Adjacent to that is the business administration. For lack of, Nate, I have to admit, I forget exactly what you call that.
That's all right. Business leadership.
Business leadership. That's it. And then the dark blue is the medical program there, and the light blue is it was a computer room at one point, I believe. Now that's your human resources.
Human services teacher prep.
Exactly. And then you can see there's some other underutilized space over here. The interesting thing there is that room has no windows because that heavy gray line is the solid concrete wall. It goes from the ground all the way up 2 stories high. So that's what we've got in the existing. And I would encourage you to go over there if you're not familiar with the building to really take a look at what you've got going on there. What we've done is we've used,
You're good.
okay. I thought that was a garbage truck backing up there. So, Andrew, if we go to the proposed plan, there's a couple things that are being accomplished here. One, we've expanded the automotive trades into what was currently the construction trades. So that's about 50% bigger. That gives you an extra car bay to work with there, room for a classroom, some changing areas. The dark gray, you can see, is we've expanded the administrative areas. We're moving the front door from the back side of the building to the front side. The reception area will be right off of that new doorway there. And Andrew, if you zoom in on the conference room, the meeting room there, by the rear entrance there, you can see that says administration meeting room. And the idea is for that to be a big enough meeting room in the district to handle a meeting similar to what you guys are doing right now, as well as a faculty room beside it. This allows you to come in either the rear or the front of the building, gets you to the same lobby space, the same access to the stairwells, and quick and easy access to the administration. The pre-tech is actually going to be rearranged a little bit here to create a space that is more appropriate for their program. The forestry is actually going to get a real classroom here so that the students can do something other than have class in a open concrete floored space. Upstairs, we are moving to, again, the Human Services room is going to have a classroom and a lab type space, which is going to be set up like a classroom. The medical technology piece is, or medical careers, I should say, is also getting done so that you meet ADA accessibility here. We are relocating restrooms to make them gender neutral, for lack of a better term, as well as being compliant with ADA. And then there's some additional meeting spaces and kind of Nate, I would let you describe how you would plan on using those purple spaces. But
Yeah, potential academic classrooms.
Right. So this really fully utilizes all the space in the building, meets a lot of the shortcomings that the current programs have in terms of space and configuration. The one thing that you notice here is that we've pushed the construction trades right out of the building. To respond to that, the idea would be to create a separate building on site for use by this program, which I would say that the space that you have currently is probably about a third of that large rectangle that you see here. So what we want to do is create a large space in the center for there to be room for actually construction of components of buildings that allows these students to learn the skills they want. There's some breakout storage and trade skills spaces on the left and a classroom on the right with some restrooms. The image that you see in the upper right of this screen, this is very interesting, but this is actually a bus barn for the Tri-Valley Transit that we built in Bradford. It's about exactly the same size as this building, and it has a very similar layout with the overhead doors you can see on the left. The lower area, in this case, were offices where the classroom would be. So this is something that gives you a really good idea of what we're looking at in a building like this. Again, those are just insulated metal panels. It's not horribly expensive construction, but this did win an Efficiency Vermont Energy Efficiency Award. So if we look at the site plan of this, you can see that the way we had this planned was to put the construction trades where the barn that was removed used to sit, with some additional storage sheds at the back and the south end of the site, with a yard in the middle that allows for vehicles and moving of materials and whatnot that's maybe not perfectly visible from the street. We were mostly set on something like this, and then the question came up about the Monteith House and the possible addition of a child care center to the project. At which point we rearranged our site plan a little bit. As you can see here, this was, we spent a little bit of time with the program director here for the child care center, and came up with an approximate size that we think would be appropriate for this. It's about 5,000 square feet. And looking at it, we felt this was the best place to put this building on the site. It's close to the street, where it'll be easier for parents to come in, drop off their youngsters, and leave the site again without getting in the way of what's happening on the rest of the tech center site. We wanted to make sure that we had a good bit of parking immediately adjacent to the building for folks to drop off their kids. There's a playground, a need for a pretty good sized playground if you're going to have this many students, that you don't want to be crossing roads. So you can see directly south of that building is a playground. We put some trees here to screen that from where the high schoolers are going to be for the construction trades. We then located the construction trades building as far to the south as we could to give more room for the child care center. I think this still shows that there's room for all of this. The one piece that's still, I think, a little lacking on this site plan, it's just a matter of we haven't gotten there yet because we're waiting to get a final survey for the rest of the site here, is that we're still on the lookout for how to provide for the additional parking required for the childcare staff, which is not an insignificant number. But as you can see, there's areas potentially there on the far west behind the construction trades building, or potentially on the east side where the greenhouse is. There's quite a bit of open area there that's, I would say, underutilized. So I think in the end, we feel like we can get a childcare center and the construction trades building on this site, along with reconfiguring the existing building. And that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
So you're in the design part of this plan. At what point do you get into the projecting out a cost estimate?
Well, we're on the verge of that. What we'd like, what we were, I think, looking for perhaps is a little bit more feedback on the child care center, and knowing where we're going to be putting these things on the site so that we can be a little more specific about the site costs here. As you know, stormwater treatment is an important component in today's world, and we're still, how much parking we have decides how much stormwater treatment we need. But I think we're pretty close to being able to then to make some assumptions here, talk about some materials, some construction systems, mechanical systems, get a narrative to an estimator, and get that back to you. So I think we're just on the verge of being able to give you that information. I mean, using square foot costs for this, and understanding that childcare centers are probably not horribly expensive, that tech centers and whatnot are typically a little more expensive. Those lifts that you have to buy for cars, for example, or the tall spaces you need are a little more expensive. But we're looking, I honestly believe this is probably a greater than $10 million project as it sits here with the child care center, construction trades building, the site work, and the renovations to the career center. And it could be as much as 50% more than that. But I'm not going to get any more specific until we actually have some real materials, real systems chosen, and get this to somebody whose professional job it is to actually estimate these things.
I guess my next question would be, if this is like, we're really considering the childcare, are we going to bring in somebody with like licensing with the state? If it's going to be near a construction building, like there's certain laws and regulations we have to follow when we're building this piece.
Melissa Wood is our early ed director,
Okay.
so she's got that part covered in terms of making sure everything is within the licensing, right? So is there feedback that you're looking for from the board, John?
No, I not necessarily. I wanted to just, give you guys an update. And, I think, I gave you some sense of the, if that's 2 or 3 times more than you wanted to spend or felt like was feasible, we should know that now before we do much else. And I think this highlights that the child care center is an important component of the site, and it actually changes the way we approach this a little bit, if that's on the site or if it isn't.
So do you think, John, when you get that cost estimate, would you be able to estimate out the cost of the project both with and without the child care center?
Yes, that would be very simple to do.
Mar, are you thinking that we have a subcommittee on this project yet?
Kind of. We haven't really met one yet. Yeah, but not really. Mort is the person, but we haven't really sat down since they talked with Melissa on the child care.
Okay, it might make sense just because there's so much time between our meetings to think about pulling together a subcommittee as we go through this phase and the next couple of phases. What do you think about that? And then we have Vern. I'd like to be in on, like, as we get through these next few phases as well.
For sure.
Okay. John, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yep. So Lynn, I guess I'm going to answer the other question you gave me a moment ago, which is the feedback I'm looking for. The other thing that folks should think about is, what is your preferred timeline for this? At this point, I think we could proceed and get you your estimates fairly quickly, and you would be in a position to make the public aware of the project and to explain it to them for a November bond vote. I don't think you could go much faster than that. But as soon as you start, taking a month to think about something or consider other options, that the timeline would get extremely compressed pretty quickly, and you'd be looking at a later vote than November.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Anything else, Nate?
No, I mean, I think the guidance that I'm looking for too is the child care center is this where we want it? And if so, then we've got to proceed with some pricing, or is there other options for that?
I think it's going to depend on the cost, actually.
Yeah. And John, that construction building is not any smaller there than it would be where the barn was, correct?
Say that. I didn't follow that question.
The square footage of the construction trades building is the same square footage?
It's pretty darn close. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure Andrew, if you gave him a few minutes here, could pick that up and set it on top of the existing site plan. But it's awful. You can just tell that that's about the same size there.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you for joining us. It was good to see you, John.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to move on to my next meeting so quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, next on the school spotlight.
Yeah, so Enosburg Falls Middle High School, this month is the middle school, and Julie Cattell, our outgoing middle school assistant principal, has brought a group of students to talk about their winning ways in the vocabulary bowl.
So we have Anissa and Annie and Catherine and Peyton who are going to share about their championship.
Yes.
Awesome.
So whenever you're ready.
Come right up. Come right up. It's hard to know where to stand when the people that went before you are on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Catherine, and this is Annie, Anissa, and Peyton. So basically every week our teacher gives us a 10-word list, and we have to master that by the end of the week, and we get a quiz at the end of the week about spelling and the general vocabulary of that list.
He also gives us like more fun lists to do if we've mastered all of that, and we also had a group of people volunteer to master a bunch of words over break.
During our previous years doing the vocab bowl, it used to only take place during the fall, but now it's been split into two separate bowls that take place, one during the fall and one during the spring.
Okay, and we have this fall we had mastered 6,000 plus words, and this spring we mastered 3,000 plus words. And this is our fall vocab banner.
Very nice. And how's the spring one coming?
We won that one too, but we haven't gotten the flag quite yet.
Fantastic. Great.
So let me ask you, what is fun or what is challenging about this?
I think the fun part is beating the other school. honestly just the words that are hard to spell. It just takes a while to master them. So that's something sort of challenging about it.
How does the competition go? Do you go somewhere or is it online?
No, it's all online.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fully online leaderboard, split up into states and then districts.
So what does it look like when you sit down to compete?
So basically, there's questions you get asked about that word, 3 about vocabulary and 1 about spelling the word. And once you've answered those, you've mastered that word. And mastering a word goes 1 point into winning. So we mastered over 6,000 this year. So we've answered like a lot of questions. Like times 4, right?
It's fantastic.
Or more, because if you get one wrong, then it takes more to master it.
Are there any questions for these young
Yeah,
scholars?
how long does a competition take? How long are you sitting there?
Is it a month?
Usually it's like a month or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What's been the hardest word?
Onomatopoeia.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that memorized now.
I don't like spelling that one. Not my favorite.
So there are 4 people on every team?
No, it's pretty much just 7th and 8th grade, but sometimes the 6th grade helps.
So it's the whole class?
Mm-hmm.
Our
Oh,
teams
okay.
are basically split up into schools.
Okay.
Schools competing against each other.
That's amazing. Congratulations, thank you for representing our school.
Thank
Doing so
you.
well
Great
with
job.
that. Fantastic. And thank you for presenting tonight. It's always great to have students here.
Thank you all. Clap. Thank you, Julie.
Okay, we're done. Plug it, sign it.
I actually don't have anything for you other than I will hop on with Lynn in terms of budget prep and just a brief update. We've not received a draft of your FY23 audit yet, but I'm hoping that'll drop in the next few weeks. And the bids for the wood chip boiler project in Richford are due on Thursday. So I will likely update you by email. We may pull together a quick online meeting to accept one of those bids. And because we only pre-qualified 2 contractors, we know we'll have to wait and get a waiver from the state before we can act.
Superintendent Lynn?
That's it.
Courtney has my slideshow. Okay. So we'll jump in first to the personnel report. So under hiring, we have, well, let me start by saying this. We had lots of conversation in the fall about teacher retention, and the board made the decision to use some of the ESSER money to do the early signing bonus. Again, it proved to be highly effective. We had 92.7% of contracts returned by Friday at 4:30. Very excited about that. So all the principals by Friday afternoon knew, kind of how many positions they may be filling. They might not be filling those positions, but very small numbers compared to what we know at this time. So it's fantastic to have that early information. So thank you to the board for supporting that strategy. So I'll go into the hiring. The other thing is they've been working quickly to try to fill the positions they have. As we all know by now, this is the hiring season where there's the frenzy of trying to get people hired before they're offered contracts in other places. So I'm going to ask for the board to approve the following hires. Heather Hawkins for the middle school assistant principal role. She's making a shift from high school to middle school. Matthew
Zelik.
Zelik, school counselor for next year at the middle school. Carolyn Luce for French teacher at Enosburg High School. Noah Johnson for science, and Jack McMullen will be moving to an intervention role. Richford Elementary School, Susan Flynn for the 0.4 librarian position, and Delaney Phelan, grade 2. And that's, if you can make a motion to approve those, that would be great.
You want the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Sarah's made the motion. Josh?
Aye.
Devin?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Okay, and then we have resignations. Amy Schwanier, pre-K at Enosburg Elementary School, and Tanya Caswell, grade 5 at EES. At Richford Elementary, Betsy Shepard, music teacher, and that's effective April 5th. And then Merle Devereaux, middle school ELA at Richford Junior Senior High School. So I'd ask the board to make a motion for the resignations.
And
I make a motion.
Devin's made the motion. Josh?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Sorry. And then open positions. I will just mention these, I don't usually read these, but because we're in hiring system and there are people that may be watching, work-based learning coordinator, we have a full-time position at Cold Hollow, which also includes some work at Enosburg High School and at Richford High School as well. Enosburg Elementary is currently looking for a bus monitor, long-term grade 4 substitute teacher, a grade 5 teacher, and a preschool teacher. There are no positions open at Enosburg Middle School. They will all be returning. Enosburg Falls High School has a director of school counseling, assistant principal for the high school, a high school math teacher, and a STEAM tech ed teacher, along with JV baseball in the head custodian role. Richford Elementary is looking for a school counselor, an elementary classroom teacher, a literacy interventionist, and paraeducators. And Richford Junior Senior High School is looking for a paraeducator, behavior technician, middle school ELA teacher. And we have one unpaid leave request, and that is for Amanda Collins. I linked that in your board notes. So Amanda has, as you read, is taking care of a family member, and what she's asking for is something that you can't really give her, because that wouldn't be consistent with what you have done with other employees. So she's asking you to continue on with the benefits for as her FMLA is about to run out. So what you could offer her is the ability to take unpaid leave through the remainder of the year. But in terms of FMLA, I strongly discourage the board from touching that, because it's very important that we treat our employees consistently. And when people reach the max of FMLA within a school year, then they do need to pay their share of their insurance. So I would ask you to approve her unpaid leave request for the remainder of the year.
Any discussion on that? Are you looking for a motion for the unpaid?
Yes.
Have a motion for granting unpaid. Sarah's made a motion. Devin?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
I'm an aye.
I have nothing under student at this time except pictures. Hopefully that's the last snow of the year. It was a doozy. Be happy not to see that again until next December or January.
Or April.
Next, we'll just go quickly through trying to bring you attendance data quarterly under your board monitoring plan. So here is your quarterly attendance review. So the first is by school. So that's looking at what your percentage daily attendance is by school. The next is by grade level. And actually, now that I'm looking at that, I owe you a report because it ends at 8th grade. So I will send that off. I'm not sure why 912 did not report.
It might be the NMB report.
The last slide was just NMV.
You know what? I think I'm gonna come back to this because I may have put in the wrong district when I ran that report. My apologies, I'm gonna bring that back next month. Let's skip through those, Courtney. The last slide showed NMV, is that what you're saying?
The first one.
First one.
Got it, those are the schools. I did put in the wrong district, apologize for that. So Morgan and I are going to tag team on this part. We're going to talk a little bit about legislative updates. So I am certain that you've been receiving information from Vermont School Boards Association about a lot of the things that are happening in Montpelier. It is certainly been an interesting legislative session. I don't know a better, I'm sure there are better adjectives, I'm not thinking of one currently, but a lot is going on. The thing that we are most in tune with has to do with the education finance discussions that are happening. We still have many schools that are trying to get their budgets approved. So we ended up with 31 budget defeats in the state. We've had some districts who have rewarned and have gotten their budgets approved, and we've had some districts who've rewarned and had a second defeat at this point. I think we had one school or two schools in the state voting today, and we have several. It feels like there's a pattern of it's either next Tuesday or the 30th. There are a lot going on the 30th, and there are some that are voting into May. So we're keeping our eye on that. I think that the legislature, in particular, House Education and House Ways and Means, have been having some really deep discussions around what to do around education funding now, this year, and what they should be doing in the future. So they've taken a lot of testimony from various stakeholders about that, and I think what has been clear is that people wanted some action this year as a stopgap, but they don't want them to rush and make a decision that is rash, and it's not well thought out, because it could be even harder. I would say that we've tried to communicate that the statewide narrative about ed finance has been detrimental for communities like ours, when the narrative is that, our tax rates are going up 20%. It is not the reality here in FNESU, and I think that the way that statewide narrative has played out has led a lot of people to believe that's true here. So we're really hopeful that people will come out. We have 6 informational sessions coming up, and we're really hopeful that people will come out and listen about what's our reality with our budget. So there's a hope there. There are also a lot of other things that are happening during the legislative session. One of the things that I testified about is, we call this the education fund, but there are a lot of other things that come out of the education fund. And, one of the big things that I've talked about over the last several years has been mental health. That we're paying for a lot of mental health services out of our education fund because it's not well resourced otherwise. And we're also paying for things like school meals and early college and dual enrollment and all of those pieces. Another big thing that we're paying for is PCB testing, remediation, and mitigation. And so we have been on a trajectory as a state for testing, and when schools are found to have PCBs in their buildings, there have been mitigation measures put into place, and then school systems work to build a remediation plan to take out the source of the PCB testing. The reality is there's not enough money that has been budgeted by the legislature. There was, I think it was 30 million or 35 million that came out of the ed fund last year, set aside for PCB testing. So the reality is we have a whole lot of schools who are kind of in a holding pattern. They're waiting because there are a lot of things at play once you get a positive test, of working with several agencies. In the end, the EPA ends up weighing in, because once you get a positive test, there's a clock that starts ticking for federal timelines around remediating those PCBs. So I just made that a long story, but the short story part of it is we still have a couple of schools that have not been tested. It's Richford Junior Senior High School and Enosburg High School. Is that it, Morgan? I think those are the last two. All other schools have been tested. We have PCBs at both Berkshire Elementary and Sheldon Elementary, and we're now in that place of doing the mitigation measures, and then we're going to be working towards the remediation piece. Richford High School has come up, and we've asked to just pause for a minute, which we're able to do on that. Right now, the legislature is strongly considering a pause to the PCB testing because we've got all of these schools across the state that now are positive for PCBs and no plan for paying for that remediation in those schools at a time when our ed system is in crisis. So they're thinking about a pause so that they can essentially catch up and figure out how they're going to fund. Because right now what we know for Berkshire and for Sheldon is once the money runs out for the state, there probably isn't going to be any money left for our projects, and our timeline is going to be up with the EPA by the time we get to that place, and so it's likely that we'll have to bond to pay for remediation, depending on where the source ends up being found. So it isn't something that we're trying to rush to do in our schools. We haven't gotten any contact about the when, as far as I know, for Enosburg High School, but we're kind of holding on for a little bit. We'll wait for a few weeks and see where the legislature goes with this. Another interesting piece that's happening in the legislature is the governor has appointed, after nearly a year of not having a Secretary of Education in Vermont, the governor has recently appointed Zoe Saunders to be the next Secretary of Education. What I know about Zoe is that she would be coming from Florida, and Zoe has spent years in the education realm and not a lot of time in the public school realm. So her experience has been primarily related to charter and more of the private or government related positions in education. So there's a process whereby the Senate must hold a confirmation hearing and confirm the governor's appointment of Zoe Saunders. So she is set to begin April 15th, and one of the things that people are really paying attention to, as you've seen in the media, there has been a fair amount of pushback in terms of the governor's appointment. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out with the confirmation hearing. To my knowledge, we've never seen anything like this, so I'm watching carefully because I'm curious to see how this will turn out. So that's a big piece of what we're watching. Morgan, what have I missed?
There's a Board of Cooperative Education Services bill that is likely to move through this year that would basically allow multiple supervisory districts and supervisory unions to come together and come up with a suite of services that would be run out of that new entity, and each of the forming districts will be able to take part in that. So I think the idea behind it is doing something similar to what we've done here with the alternative programs that Michelle's created. You would be able to do that across several districts rather than within an SU.
So it stands for BOCES, which is what they do in a lot of other states. New York has a pretty strong BOCES model, so that's something that will likely move through. And I'm sure there are other pieces, but that's like the high level of the big things that we're really watching. Can any of you think of something that I've missed in terms of big bills?
Last week you said something about CGE.
I can't hear anything.
Last week you said something
Oh,
about CGE.
yes, sorry, thank you. That was a big one. There's a CTE bill that is being considered, and there was a study Remind me what the study was called?
APA study to call it.
Okay, so there was an APA study that had 9 or 10 recommendations. And essentially, the Agency of Education was supposed to make a recommendation to the legislature about CTEs. The recommendations don't really mirror the APA recommendations that came out of that whole study, so that is interesting. Right now, it feels really up in the air in terms of where they're going to go around 2 big things that are of interest to me, and that is governance and funding of CTE centers. So there are a lot of parts of our state don't have the same benefit that we do of having a CTE center within their district. So this is kind of an awesome opportunity for our kids to have it right in our community, but it's very rare. There are some parts of the state where you might have a CTE center that's supporting like 13 sending districts. So it's very hard for kids to get a spot in those CTE centers. So there's an access problem. There's also a funding problem because sometimes sending schools look at it as a financial disadvantage to send kids off to CTE centers because of the way those programs are funded. And there's also a question about how we govern those CTE centers. So that's something that's kind of been talked about for a really long time. Do we keep them in these supervisory unions or supervisory districts? Or in the state of Vermont, we have 4 CTE districts that essentially function. They're the larger CTE centers. They essentially function like a supervisory union or a school district. So they have, the director is like the director/superintendent. So it varies broadly across the state. So I have a lot of questions about where is this going to go. Right now, funding for the CTE center goes through our supervisory union, but we don't know if that will remain or if there'll be a change in how we fund as a state. And we don't know about the governance, essentially. Anything you want to add about that?
No, you summed it up very well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder, Courtney. That's all I have under legislative updates. Any questions on any of that? Okay. The 24-25 school calendar is something that the FNESU board approved at the last meeting that we had. It's very similar to this current year, except we started from a different place. We had a common agreement between the Champlain Valley superintendents that we were going to work really hard to serve as a model for the rest of the state to prove that we could agree on 175 common student days. It's always been the charge in state statute is that we have to come up with a common regional calendar. But we've always had the ability to apply for waivers. So we start with a common calendar, but then we say, well, I want this day, and that district wants that day, and we approve these waivers so you don't end up with a common calendar. And what we've found since COVID is it really does matter if a neighboring district doesn't have school on a day and you're trying to have school on a day. We're all functioning in a world where there are staffing shortages, so we made a really strong commitment to make sure that our calendars were aligned. And in Franklin, Grand Isle in particular, we're completely aligned. There are some slight variations with part of Chittenden and Addison counties that added a couple of different holidays into their calendars than what we did, and that's reflective of their student population. So in this common calendar, we do start school 2 days earlier. Do you have it up for me? Okay. So we do start in August, if you could go down just a little, on the 26th instead of the 28th. We've had some years recently where we're pretty deep into June by the time we get out of school, so that was common that people wanted to start earlier. If you could scoot down so we could see through December. We have that October time has changed slightly. It moved up a week essentially from the last calendar. Sometime in November, teachers get credit for one in-service day for doing evening parent-teacher conferences. There's the December break. What you'll see is that there are no half-day early releases. We've removed all of those half-days from the calendar. And then if you could go to January, the January calendar is the same as what we have had in the past. We've got a day off on the 20th and an in-service day on the 21st, and the rest of the calendar is modeled after what we currently have. That in-service day in March is about a week later, but that's a common, as I said, a common date. And that gets us out of school. Last student day proposed on June 11th. So a little earlier than what we have been able to have in the last couple of years. Any questions on your calendar? Still going to have the 1 hour early release on Tuesdays.
I was gonna ask if any other like schools or districts are jumping on board with that this year, as far as like the early release. I know that
Yeah.
like Maple Run has done it, then we did it. Is there another district that's?
To be honest, before we made the shift,
Yeah.
there are a lot of districts across
I
the
was-
state that have done that for a long time. There's some that have two.
Yeah.
They have 2 in a week. I don't know if anybody else has jumped on in the county or not. Any other questions? Okay, and that's all I have.
Okay. Principal's report. Kelly?
Hi. Everything on my report is informational, but I just wanted to highlight that I did put something in there about attendance. I don't know. Thinking there about attendance, one of the things that we've really been working on this year is denying trying to attendance because it still is problematic and incredibly impactful for some students. So one of those, our family helping with that. We've created lots of plans for students and families. Sometimes it's not just the student, particularly at the elementary level, if there is a situation. So we just try to look at as many different ways that we can support as possible, but it's definitely something with some success, but in some areas, more success.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. Beth?
Mine's all informational, but I just wanted to say that our Enosburg-Richford students leave for Costa Rica on Wednesday. And I do want to do a shout out to Todd Marlowe and Katie Jouer, who worked very hard, along with some very dedicated parents, to do all the fundraising to make that trip possible.
It's fantastic. When will they be back?
I don't know, do you know when they're back?
April 25th.
Friday, right?
That the Thursday. I think we're getting it like midnight. We've got a long layover down in Charlotte. It's gonna be a.
You have 2 layovers on the way back, right?
Yeah, Dallas and then Charlotte. Yeah.
Jen?
All informational. I did want to highlight, we had Christian Portamach, who works for All Learners Network, and CVED, who has been working with us throughout the year with number sense and with math. And he came in to classes during the day and modeled number talks for the teachers. And then they would have time to talk with Christian after, to ask questions, that sort of thing. And then he did a presentation at our staff meeting after that. And the teachers are all implementing the number talks, and it's really getting the kids to be stronger at that mental math, not necessarily needing that pencil and paper. It's really some fun stuff.
So in addition to the vocabulary students, I wanted to update everybody about the snack shack. So I had come to you in the winter and mentioned that it might be $40,000 worth of repairs, Vern and facilities, and maybe Morgan. But Vern took a look at it with some local contractors, and I don't have an exact amount of money. I'll tell you what it is, and maybe Morgan knows what the money is. But what they're gonna do is lift all the stuff that's kind of visible in the basement, lift it up to the next level, and fill in the basement with something that gets really hard, and it's gonna be like a big firm foundation, so it'll stop the, is it spreading or caving? Anyway, it'll stop that, it'll stay right where it is, and the snack shack will sit on top of it, and all of the technological and plumbing stuff will be, because you can see, hey, listen, if you ever go, I'm auditioning for tech center.
I can tell that's how I was at, Larry.
Yeah.
I got it.
Anyway, thank you, Rachel.
They did a
Nice
movie
job.
out of it.
Yes, yeah,
I love that you called it audition.
audition. It's a show. Anyway, so hopefully this will be done way under $40,000, and the snack shack will be reserved. Do you have any idea on money?
Yes, it's not gonna be way under 40,000.
Oh.
40,000 was maybe optimistic.
Really? I thought the whole point of the filling in the basement was.
That was the whole point.
Filling it in with money, Matt.
Filling of money, yeah, so I got a brief update from him today. He was out last week, and he done some more talk with other contractors, and it looks like that's also gonna be an expensive proposition. Ultimately, there's a drainage problem on the outside of the foundation which really needs to be addressed, and so I don't know if the latest numbers he gave me was to do both that and the filling it up with concrete, or some kind of special concrete.
So this raises the question of, is this an economical thing, or is there a more economical way to do it?
I think we're looking for the more economical way to do it. The question, I think, at some point is gonna be, is it worth doing? Yeah.
So,
It sounded good, Matt.
thank you, with my technical terms there, but, well, that was the fun part, was listening to me try to describe the construction. And then the less fun part apparently is the update about the money, so there you go, I guess it remains.
So I have a friend I'm in the business, so.
You're in the biz.
I got a friend that has a crane company.
Yeah.
And we can just lift it, fill it with dirt, pour a slab and put it back. So let me look and see how much it costs to lift the building, but that's what they do.
Yep, I know we've thought about that too.
Perhaps we can just fill it with the remains of the Monteith house.
There you go.
That'd be the cheapest and most economical.
Two birds, one stone.
All right, now you.
Okay. So, I put the workplace, I put the work keys info there, but you're gonna get a much more in-depth Perkins targets and all that stuff next month, because my plan's due, I need to present that to you. Some of the highlights are Skills USA started today, so we had, I think, 7 or 8 students participate today, and another, I think, 15 tomorrow. So they're down there competing, and then the other thing, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Beth and Matt. We've had an unprecedented amount of field trips this year, and mostly from businesses that want our students there. And so we're taking seniors that might not always know what they want to do, which might lead to them not always being great academic students in their semi-high schools, but them along with our pre-tech kids we've toured Beatrice, we've Barry Calabo, we've gone to multiple auto dealerships, Handy, Automaster, Heritage, we're going to the railroad soon, we've got Husky next week. So we're taking these kids out of school just to make sure that they know what all their opportunities are, so I really want to thank you guys for being flexible enough to let these, because we're not always back on time, it's not like in that 2-hour window when we're traveling to these places, so you guys have been very, appreciate you guys letting that happen, even though some of these kids may not always be in the best standing. I think this is very beneficial for them to see these places, so they know where to go next year.
I think there's a 2-part to that too. I keep saying this, the 2-generation part of this work is that there are opportunities in that industrial center for the parents in our communities too. Like, these are high wage jobs that are available in the advanced manufacturing. So it's great that you're bringing the kids out, and I hope that some of them are enticed to move in that direction, and maybe them talking about some of those experiences will also create opportunities for families.
Yeah.
They're saying get another bus, and get it.
Yeah.
You need to bring your few pictures to your parents to school day.
That's cool.
On the board business, teacher staff appreciation, how we do with that?
That's me, right?
All you.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, so for Richford, we have decided, Devin and I decided we're going to do Weatherby's and Mocha's. Those, we have not gone to either of those yet for Richford. And I think that there would be good businesses to attract. For Enosburg, we're kind of on the fence. So we are doing flower to flower. That's kind of a yes. But now we're wondering West Enosburg store for the meat market that just opened. And I think we're kind of looking for feedback on which one. Because we do 2 from each town, and then all the staff in Enosburg and Richford can pick from one of the 4.
What is in West Enosburg? You said it meat market.
Have we done either one before?
No, and we haven't done flower to flower either. West Enosburg store.
Yeah.
And the meat market.
Oh, here.
Yeah, it's the one pretty much across from there.
I'm partial to the meat market, honestly, but I think I get both, so.
I think that the West Enosburg store's been around a while, and I think it'd be really cool. You know, not saying nothing against the meat market, but they just opened up. So maybe supporting a business that's been a staple for a while.
You're gonna pick 2 for Enosburg.
I think flower was a definite.
Okay.
I think Flower to Flower has good options. Like they have lunch specials all the time, they have breakfast, and they have different stuff.
They've been great, like every school event I've been at, they've done something for and given to the school.
Flower to flower?
Like every single school event I've gone to, they have donated or done something. Yep.
Sarah, which one do you think? I can throw one in one.
So let's do the West Enosburg then, if that's what people are wanting, the store. And then maybe next year we'll do the meat market.
Okay. So we're kind of switching this up every year, right?
Yeah.
Trying to spread it around a little.
Yeah, until I run out of places, which is happened.
Happened in one
That's
community
what I'm
already.
asking.
So last
Okay.
last year, I looked today, last year I sent out the survey on April 20th, and I gave everybody until the end of break. And then, I don't know how I did it, but I got all the gift cards that first full week of May. So I can send it out sooner, or I can kind of wait until that timeline too.
I think that timing works, Courtney, and we just try to get it to them on behalf of the board during Teacher Appreciation Week.
Yeah.
Which we'll have to figure out which of those 2 weeks it is, because I think we were a week early last year.
We were, but no,
They're
it's.
like, we love you, and then the next week, oh, by the way, this is teacher.
No, so our communication group have all collectively agreed that it's the first full week of May. I don't know why, I think it's silly, but it's the first full week of May.
That's where it's always been, except last year was the second week.
No, it seemed like the second week, but that's because there were a few days in May.
Yeah.
That week.
2 days of
And then-
April left in it.
Is that what it was?
And it was,
left in May?
that's.
Yeah. There are some April days and May days.
I'm trying to line up the
It depends on how you define
We
first
have
week.
some of both this year too.
Sure. Okay, so,
You knew what I
Yeah, I think it's it.
perfect. Okay, anything else? Board business? Okay, now then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Rachel's made a motion, Josh,
Aye.
Devin,
Aye.
Sarah,
Hi.
and Dominic.
I know.
Giving home from board meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
I know, right?